Hello, everybody. C. Ray Brower here. Today we have Leah Garcia, and we are going to talk about capital gains, and that is going to be coming up next. And we're back. How are you today, Leah?
I am wonderful. Today is going to be a deep dive, so I hope everybody's got their goggles and their little floaties on because we're going to go deep today. But I want to know.
What about the tanks? What about the air tanks? Are we going that deep or just snorkeling?
We're going to go 2,000, 3,000. I don't. It's going to be deep. I don't know.
As long as you didn't just have tacos, because swimming in tacos and full stomachs is not a good thing. At least that's what our parents used to tell us.
This is what our parents used to tell us, yeah. And it is Taco Tuesday, which obviously is one of my favorite days of the week. But
exactly. Well, today we are going to bring everybody some information about capital gains and help them understand in that deep dive exactly what capital gains are and how they affect them financially. So let's start with just a really high level. What would be considered a capital gain?
Great question. So a capital gain, there are many different types of capital gains, but basically it is going to be a tax levied on you or your estate when you have a gain. For example, real estate, if you bought it many years ago and say you paid, I know people who purchased houses in San Jose, Bay Area for $20,000, $50,000. And now today in the Bay Area, homes are worth $1 to $2 to $3 million. So that could be considered a capital gain.
Yeah. Okay. And that would be a long-term capital gain. What's the difference between a long-term and a short-term?
Well, just really quick here, full disclosure, I'm a financial professional. I am not a tax attorney, nor am I CPA. So this is not tax or legal advice. So when it starts to get into long-term, short-term, that's really a question for the CPA because it's going to depend on a lot of different things, how long you've held the asset and things of that nature. But really, when it comes to capital gains or really estate planning, it really requires or should require you to have a team of professionals that are working together on your behalf. No one professional is an expert in all areas of taxes. It's just not possible. There's over 83,000 pages in the tax code, and it would be unreasonable to expect your CPA alone has all the tools, all the bells and whistles to understand and be able to properly prepare you for those taxations. So great.
That makes a ton of sense. Just like anything in life, a team is way better than an individual.
Yeah, they say together everyone achieves more, but it's even deeper than that because in the past we kind of piecemealed our professionals. You maybe had, a CPA you met in high school, and maybe you met somebody to do your wealth management and such. But really, all those areas really do overlap, especially these days with as complex as our tax code is.
They make sure and keep it that way for us, don't they?
I know. It just gets trickier and trickier. So one thing that came to my mind was a recent ruling, IRS ruling 2023-2.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well,
brand new 2023-2. That's this year, right?
It is this year and very recently. And it came to mind, I saw this article in Kiplinger, and I'll link it because this is a really good article, really good explanation. And it has to do with capital gains, and it has to do with how your living trust is set up. We've talked on this show previously about owning a living trust and putting that layer of protection. So
Right.
there's basically two types of living trust. There are many, but there are two basic categories. One is called revocable, meaning you can change it or toss it to the wayside at any point. The other one is irrevocable, meaning that it's set in stone. It's kind of your assets are there, and it is whether you're still alive or you've passed away, those assets are now irrevocable. You cannot take them back at any point. Does that make sense so far?
That makes sense. That makes sense. But you can, in an irrevocable, you can add.
In an irrevocable, it depends. So it can get very, very dicey. It can be an irrevocable trust can be there, it's set. And again, it's about different layers. And here's the other part. A living trust is truly a living trust. It is not a set it and forget it. You may need one layer of protection when you're in the younger years, but as your estate grows and evolves, then you might need something else. So irrevocable is usually, not always, but usually more towards end of life. Okay. We get a little more gray hair and such. So this ruling has to do with irrevocable living trusts.
Okay.
And very, very specific. Now, are you familiar with irrevocable or why anyone would have an irrevocable living trust?
Yeah, I don't know why somebody would. Why would it? That's a great question.
It is. So someone may have an irrevocable living trust when we're referring to Medicaid planning or estate planning when it comes to VA benefits.
Okay.
So in other words, we're getting to the point, we've amassed this estate, and now we want to get assets out of our name because we want to be eligible for benefits through the state for long-term care and long-term care planning, long-term care needs, assisted care, in-home health care, and all those things. Are you with me so far?
That I can understand that. Yeah.
Okay, I know this is getting deep, and I'm really want to make this because this is so valuable information. So hopefully I can articulate this properly. So when we get to an irrevocable trust, the reason we have that is to protect us from the spend down and give us the eligibility for Medicaid and those benefits in lieu of long-term care, or maybe even conjunction with long-term care, because a majority of families do not own long-term care insurance. Right? So that's when it comes to the irrevocable living trust. Now, what this ruling states is this, and I'm going to read it because it's verbatim. It has to do with living trusts that are irrevocable. And remember, this is when we've amassed this estate in California. We bought properties for pennies on the dollar, and now they could be potentially worth millions. So this ruling states this. It says, does asset protection planning now mean that to avoid the spend down, you will have to subject your children to these additional taxes? Maybe. The key part of this IRS decision is that only those assets that are held in an irrevocable trust that are not otherwise included in your estate at death for estate tax purposes will lose the step up in basis. I might want to read that again. The key part of the IRS decision is that only those assets that are held in an irrevocable trust that are not otherwise included in your estate at death for estate tax purposes will lose a step up in basis. So what does this mean? Essentially, in a move that is likely meant to make sure that as many estates as possible become subject to paying these estate taxes, if you establish an irrevocable trust that is not set up properly, you will lose the step up in basis. You with me? I told you
I am with you.
I told you we're going deep today. So hopefully, so basically,
and what that means in layman's terms, what that means for everybody, when you pass, your estate gets a step up in its value, so that if your heirs sell it, they aren't subject to capital gains tax. But this is saying that if it's in there and not set up properly in an irrevocable trust, that you lose that. And so then you would be subject to those capital gains taxes on that
Right.
$50,000 property that's now worth $2 million. So yeah,
Absolutely.
you definitely need to make sure it's set up correct.
Yeah. Now, estate taxes do change all the time. In 2013, it was about 5 million, and it has gone up a little. It's not sequential, it just depends. Right now, the estate taxes or exemption is about 12 million, and that might seem like some farewell number, but in California, if we've got that property that's 2 or 3 million, we acquire a few, you know, residentials and commercial properties, and now we've got apartment complexes and such, which is not far-fetched. Now we could be subject to that. And by the way, just like the state taxes were lower in 2013, that can happen at any time. There's been talk of reducing that to like 1 million.
Right. Right. I have heard that, and that would be devastating for many people, because that number is easily attainable by most people in their lifetime, right?
I mean, anywhere you live, it's probably going to be anywhere in this lifetime. So what this means, see, Ray, is really we have to stay on top of these things. We never know when the laws and rules can change. This actually just kind of got passed without much hoopla, and not much attention was paid to it.
Right.
But if we don't have the proper estate planning in place, if we haven't been proactive and we don't have a team of professionals, you can get your family really set up to have to pay these estate taxes. And a lot of times I see families, they have to end up in a fire sale selling off assets in order to pay for the taxes at that final stage when their loved one has passed away.
Right. Right. I mean, it is definitely critical to stay on top of these things, because you're right. They, like you said, this was passed without much hoopla. Why? Because they really didn't want everybody to know
That's
about it,
right.
right? I mean, let's
That's
just
right.
slide this under the radar. And unfortunately, our elected officials tend to make sure that they look out for number one instead of the masses, which is a whole different subject. So we won't dig into that any deeper.
Yeah, we won't get into that. I totally agree. A lot of times people think that estate planning and advanced tax planning is just for the rich or the wealthy. But really, it's a part of any estate plan. I sit down with families all the time. They think, oh, I don't have anything. I just bought a house here and I have a little bit there and I've got some retirement plans, and suddenly put everything together and it's millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So it can happen really quickly, especially in California here. So what does it mean? This is what it means. Review your plan. Talk to your CPA. And I have a couple of questions you should probably ask your CPA, if that's okay.
That'd be great.
Okay. So number one, ask your CPA. Well, review your CPA, first of all. Just because you had your CPA for 10, 20, 30 years doesn't mean that it's the right CPA for your situation today. So review your CPA. Get together with your CPA and do a little interview with them, right? Number one, ask them, do you offer advanced tax planning? Your CPA may have that component available, but you've never asked them about it, and they're busy and they just assume that you're fine with their taxes the way that they are. Maybe there's additional services that you may be available for you. Number two is, what is your vetting process for the referrals that you have access to that you will refer me to help put together my plan? So in other words, when they refer you over to that tax attorney, when they refer you over to that wealth management, what is the vetting process for them to say, this is the person I'm referring you over to, or this is the 3 or 4 that I'm going to refer you to, and you kind of pick. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, vetting is extremely, especially in this day and age of being able to just punch it up on the computer and say, oh, there's 4 CPAs. Here, go see them, right?
Absolutely.
vetting is definitely a something that needs to be done in everything in our life. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. One of my favorite things is doctors,
Mm.
healthcare, which kind of ties into this. And I have friends that have said, "Oh, I got this," and the doctor says I got to do that, and I said, "Wow, that sounds kind of extreme." Did you get a second opinion? No,
Yeah.
really. You won't get a second opinion on something that severe in your life? Well, no, he's a doctor. But you've got to remember that 50% of the doctors graduated in the bottom half of the class.
Yes, that's completely true. And you know what? It comes with a comfort level also. Maybe the CPA is wonderful at what they do, but if you don't feel comfortable, right, you don't feel like you can relate to them a little bit personally, then that might not be a right match for you as well.
Oh no, that is 100%. That's over the top. That's surface level. If you can't relate to somebody, there's absolutely no reason for you to be working with them at all.
Yeah. You
Which
can
is
take
why I have a wide range of people on this show, right?
right.
And people from the same categories, because the people that resonate with you aren't going to resonate with one of my other guests. And
Absolutely.
that's the reason to have a multitude of people. I'll interview a realtor on this show anytime any realtor wants to come on the show. I would love to interview a realtor because I can't be for everybody.
That's right.
My personality isn't going to match other people, and maybe somebody I bring on will. And that's all I'm interested in, is making sure that everybody has the best possible service that they can. And if you can't relate to somebody, they can't give you good service.
Yeah, I totally love that about you. And I do love that you bring so many different, eclectic, similar backgrounds, different backgrounds, same category, but we all have a different flavor,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I really recently have embraced that if I'm not turning anyone off, then I'm not turning anyone on. So, and
Absolutely.
the third question is, what is your area of specialized knowledge? So maybe you own a Subway franchise. Maybe you're a real estate investor, but your CPA is more specialized with contractors or with W-2 employees. Or maybe they have an area that's specialized that would be a good match for you, but you've never accessed that. You've never asked them about it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that open communication, right?
Yeah.
The only way you're going to find out anything about anybody is to ask questions,
Yeah.
and ask questions often, and ask questions. And if you get an answer and you don't understand it, it's time for another question.
Right. That's such a great point. And I think sometimes professionals with all these, accreditation, CPAs have, years of experience and knowledge. They can feel really intimidating, even though they don't mean to.
Right.
So just
Right.
being empowered to know that you can ask those questions, and there are no silly questions, especially when it comes to your financial decisions. These are
Yeah.
decisions that can impact your family for generations.
Absolutely. Generational wealth. If you have built up an estate that is generational in size, and you don't have it planned correctly, all of a sudden it's not even a decade's worth of, because you didn't plan correctly and they got taxed to death and went into probate and the state took their share. Yeah, it can get crazy quick.
Absolutely. And you know what's really interesting in the Bay Area for sure, families really underestimate the size and the scope of their estate. They
Right.
truly do. I can tell you this past month, it was really just, a real paradigm shift for me, sitting down with families, and every single family I sat down said, "Oh, we don't have much, Leah. We just have a property here or there. And, we got some retirement kind of scattered around." And, and then once we bring it all together, it's really much more than they anticipated, which is wonderful. But
Right.
now we've got more advanced planning.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it does happen very rapidly in areas like the Bay Area. I mean, I recall my very first $1 million open house. It
Wow.
was probably 12 blocks, 14 blocks from Giant Stadium. And it had a non-permitted 2-bedroom unit behind it. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit in front. The one behind was not permitted. The one behind, it was raining that day, and it was wetter on the inside than it was on the outside.
There you go.
You could barely walk up the steps into it.
Wow.
And the front was better, but it still had roof leaks and window leaks and problems. And it was $1 million, and it sold for $1.3 million.
Wow.
The back unit was a complete teardown. And the reason it sold for $1.3 million was because it was zoned for a fourplex.
Right.
And it actually made sense to tear it down and build a luxury fourplex. And it was very profitable doing that. And on top of that, it was 12 years before the property sold for $200,000.
Whoa. Wow.
$200,000 to $1 million teardown.
Wow.
$1 million teardown property.
Where was that located? Where was that property located?
That was San Francisco, about 12 blocks, 14 blocks from the Giant Stadium.
Wow. Yeah, that happens. And it's still happening today.
Yeah. Amazing. Just amazing.
So I have a little question for you, C. Ray.
Sure.
We talked about some pretty deep topics, and hopefully it wasn't too deep, and hopefully you captured your viewers captured some golden nuggets. But on a lighter note, I'd like to know, is there something that your audience doesn't know about you that you could kind of share on a personal note? Maybe something that most people don't know about you.
Something people don't know about me. I was the original Similac baby. In 1956, I was allergic to all milk.
Wow.
I had to have Similac. I was vitamin K deficient. And when I was 4, I almost died because 2 foot of my small intestine had no nerve endings.
Wow.
And I backed up and almost died. Had to have surgery when I was 4.
Wow.
I went into first grade. I missed kindergarten going through surgery and getting myself healthy. Mm-hmm. I went into first grade and had a terrible stutter.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But my first grade teacher, bless her heart, I wish I could remember her name, but I had so many teachers from first to 4th grade that I don't remember her name, but she took me home after school every day and worked with me to get rid of my stutter.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You
exactly.
are a miracle. We've always known that you are a miracle, and you are the sunshine in our rainy day, but we had no idea that it started when you were just a little one.
Just yeah. I mean, my mom and dad had no insurance at that time. And so I actually am the second born. My older sister was stillborn. And so when my mom went to the doctors and said, yeah, he doesn't have milk. He can't drink milk. They found that out very fast. They knew I was vitamin K deficient from the tests. But when she went to him and said, he doesn't dirty enough diapers, they said, oh, you're just a new mom. You lost your first baby. There's nothing wrong with that baby. And I can remember so many times as a youngster having to go to the bathroom before I could watch cartoons because Dad just spent $40 or whatever the doctor's visit was back then. Didn't have no insurance, and doctor said there was nothing wrong with me. So I would have to go in and prove that I had been to the bathroom before I could watch cartoons.
Oh, wow.
And then, like I said, I ended up with a really bad stutter, but my teacher helped me out of it. And
You would never know that. Look at you. Now you're doing podcasts and zooming and booming and talking to everybody. So I love it.
well, thank you so much for asking. I appreciate that. I like that about you. You always have a little something to kind of nail me on too. So
There you go. That's my job, isn't it?
yeah, that's our job, is to be in there and find out stuff that people really don't know about us. You
I
know,
love it.
I appreciate it. I really do. So have you got anything else for our guests and stuff on capital gains today?
Yeah, I think
Can
we're
we
kind of
surface?
closing up here. Yeah, but I think we did some pretty deep dive. I definitely will send you the link to this article. It's very, very, top of mind right here. And at the same time, capital gains is many layers. The key takeaway, hopefully all of you understand, is that estate planning takes time and truly a team of professionals working together, strategically planning to bring you the best solutions, the most proactive planning and holistic planning. So it's taking into account all of your assets, not just one special piece of it.
Perfect. Well, I didn't get your stuff scrolling down below today.
That's okay.
Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how to get hold of you?
Absolutely. I'm all over social media, LinkedIn, Leah Garcia, CEO. You can call me directly at 408-625-0613. We're located in beautiful downtown Monterey, 490 Calia Principal, Suite H. And next week is Car Week. It's coming up here in Monterey here. So if you're in the area or you love cars, it's going to be cars everywhere.
All right. It's the Concours d'Elegance this weekend?
It's called Car Week. I don't really know much about that.
Okay.
But there's cars everywhere. That's the thing I do know. If you love cars, they're going to be everywhere. Some of it's paid, but then they have some free displays. And I think there's going to be a big show on Sunday or Sunday, something like that.
Very cool. And I'll pass on a little information that maybe even you don't know. You probably do, but maybe not. A really good friend of mine and client and what have you. I was talking to him earlier today, and he loves Carmel and Monterey and everything. And him and his wife were over there 2 weekends ago. He says, I was thinking about you. I said, you was? He says, yeah, we were at Spanish Bay at Roy's having breakfast. He said, and just sitting there and watching the golfers go by and the fresh cut grass. It was absolutely perfect. And I was thinking about you. And I said, yeah, you were there in the morning. And he said, yeah, we were having breakfast. I said, in the afternoon, evening at dusk, the bagpiper comes out. And he says, what? I said, yeah, you can sit there at Roy's and watch the sunset and listen to the bagpiper come in. And he goes, wow, I didn't know that. And I said, yeah, it's pretty cool. He says, but it's $11.75 now to get on 17 Mile Drive. And I said, yeah, I last time I was over, it was like $10. He says, yeah, just 2 years ago, it was $10. He says, it's $11.75 now. And I said, wow. He said, but I didn't have to pay. And I went, what? He says, yeah, I complained about $11.75 as I was giving the guy the money. He says, I got to pay. I'm going to go buy breakfast and I'm going to pay $11.75 just so I can drive down there and have breakfast. And he goes, oh, here, and gave him his money back.
What?
And he said, well, why is that? And he said, well, I can't charge you just to go in and go to one of our restaurants.
Wow.
So as a tourist attraction, it's $11.75. If you're just going to drive by and look at the mansions and what have you, then it's $11.75. But if you're going in to eat, you let them know they don't charge you.
Yeah, I have a pass, but yeah, Spanish Bay is my favorite beach. And people don't know about Spanish Bay because you do have to pay to get in there, but it is worth it. It's a smaller beach and it's just different every time you're there. People build the little rock statues. It's just, and dogs are allowed out there. It's just spectacular.
Yeah. That whole area is spectacular, but there are those little hidden hideaway things that many people don't know about. Yeah, no. I got a 17 mile drive story before we get off.
Yeah, tell me.
The the first time me and my wife were going down 17-mile drive together 30 some odd years ago, it only
Mhm.
cost $4 to go down
Wow.
or whatever it was. But we're
Right.
driving along, and of course, bumper to bumper traffic, and just driving along, turn around and look, and here's this mansion up on the left hand side. It's got scaffolding all the way around it. They're doing some kind of work, but 3 stories tall. And I turn and looking at the scaffolding, and a naked woman come out of one door, walked and waved at everybody, and went in another door.
Wow. Well, I've never had that happen to me, but it's definitely a place when you come, give yourself time and just literally just not just do the 17-mile drive, but I'd encourage you. There are so many little winding areas. There's little paths that you can walk around and just so many little treasures. Get out and just enjoy all the wonderful beauty that's there.
There's a ton right there for sure.
Mhm.
Leah, as always, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your knowledge about capital gains. Everybody, make sure if you need any kind of help to give Leah a call, 408.
625-0613.
There you go. All right, everybody, go out and be the sunshine in somebody's rainy day. Remember to see Ray to find your perfect home, and we will all catch you next time. Of course, like, follow, and share,
Oh,
because
yeah,
sharing is caring.
it is.